What's up, everyone? Welcome to Notes and welcome to another video in our Directors playlist. And in this video, we will be looking into, I would say, Directors authentication and authorization. And believe me, this is one of the best features which is built into Directors, right? So, without wasting our time, let's get started with, I would say, the authorization part of Directors, which is our access policies, right? Before understanding and implementing those scenarios, I just want to explain what an access policies look like and how you can create multiple access policies and can, provide, or I would say, link those access policies with your end users, right? So here you can see that access policies, just I would say, in simple terms, just assume that these access policies are just like permission groups, right? So permission groups related to the collection, right? So here you can see that we are having all those operations which are create, read, update, delete, and share, right? So we normally call them as CURD operations. And once you have all those operations, you can define that for which collection what operation is allowed, right? So here you can see that for to dos, I am allowing that, yeah, this access policy has the permission to create the to-do, read the to-do, but it cannot update, delete, or share the to-dos, right? That's one way of describing, I would say, your access policies. And you can create multiple access policies based on your needs, and then you can assign all those access policies to your end users, right? This is how I would say access policies work in your, I would say, Directus Data Studio, right? And these work on, I would say, on your API level as well as on your Data Studio level, both, okay, depending on what options you are providing. So now normally in other applications, in SaaS applications, normally call them as permission sets or permission groups, but Directors has used this terminology which is called as access policies, right? Now let's jump into our Data Studio and let's create some of the access policies and let's see that how things are working, right? So you come into settings sections and you can see that when you come into the settings sections, you're having this option of access policies right over here, in which you can go and create custom access policies and then you can assign those access policies to your end users, right? So once you click on this, you can come over here. You can see that we are already having some of the access policies which are pre-built by Directors, right? Which is number one is the administrator, and you can see that administrator, it is saying that admins have all the permissions, right? So this is your administration access policies, which comes by default in Directors Data Studio. And then you're having this public access policy, and this was, I would say, the policy which allows the end users to interact with your data without authenticating. And just keep that in mind that this is implemented on the API level, okay? And even if you allow this to if you check this app access, it will not grant permission to your Directors Data Studio, right? And this public policy only works on the API level. So now, without wasting our time, let's go back and let's create an API policy and let's call it as access policy one. Not a good name, but this will work fine for now. And I will grant the app access to this now. Now this app access thing is I would say the option in which you are telling Directors that, yeah, I want this access policy to have the access to my Directors Data Studio as well, right? And obviously I won't be granting this admin access, and let's save this thing, right? Now once you come over here, you can see that you can provide the name which what we did, and you can select a custom icon if you really like that, okay? And then going on, you can provide I would say good description, right? So I will call it as like uh, these are these are access policies for I would say, for let's say, for users, okay? Not a good description, but this will work fine for now, okay? So let's save this thing and let's again open it, right? And now we see that our description is has been shown over here. And then moving on, this is the point where you can grant permissions to your this access policies, right? And now for granting permission, you can select a collection, and then you have to select the desired action you want to provide, right? And for now, the reason you can see over here is that multiple collections are selected and they are granted this permission. The reason Directus is doing that is because I have checked this app access, right? And for getting access to Directus Data Studio, there are some requirements and some permissions which must be allowed, and those are the permissions which Directus has auto configured, right? So normally you don't have to change these, right? But moving on, let's leave all these default as it is, and now let's add our collection, right? Now let's say this is the point where you will be targeting your specific collection and you will be granting permissions to whatever those operations you want to perform, right? So let's say in our case, I'm saying I will be targeting our to-dos collection, right? And you can see that now it is over here, and you can either grant all the permission, or you can, select a related permission and then go accordingly, right? But for now, let's say I'm saying that I want to grant all the permissions to this to-dos collection for this access policy, right? So anyone having this access policy can create, read, update, delete, and share the to-dos, right? So now let's save this thing. Okay, once you save this thing, you can see that our access policies, has been created. And right now we don't have any users inside those access policies, right? And neither we are having any roles, right? We will be covering roles in the coming on section, but right now just focus on the users part, right? So now what we can do is we can come to our user section, okay? And then we can create another user and can grant that access policy to that user, right? So let's create a user and let's call it as John, and let's name it as John Doe, right? And let's give him an email of, let's say, john@test.com, and the password is always admin for me. And now once you have created all those, I would say first name, last name, email, and password, you can further going on, you can upload avatar and all these fields. But I will jump straight back into the, I would say, this admin options, and here you can see that I am having an option to grant any policies or select the policies which I want to grant to this end user, right? So what I can do is I can click on this add existing, and then I can come to this access policy one, which I have recently created, right? And here it is showing you that this is having the access of your data studio because we have granted the app access. And then whatever permissions we have implemented will be implemented, or those, I would say, permissions will be granted to this end user, right? So once you save this thing and save this, so our user is ready, right? And now what we can do is we can just log out from our data studio. We can just sign out, and we can just sign in with that user, which is john@test.com. And then we can provide admin as the password and sign in, right? And now you can see that we are in our Directus Data Studio with a lot more less permissions. And these are only those permissions which we have granted, right? Now you can see that we are only being presented with our to-dos collection, and we can do everything with our to-dos collection. We can create them, we can update them, we can delete them depending on what permissions we have granted, right? And then we are having other menus, which is our user directory, and you can see that this is only showing one user, which is John Doe, and this is our own user in which we can come and we can, either we can also change some of the settings if we really want to, but I think this is also not allowed because we have not given this permission as well, right? And apart from that, we can, view our activity logs as well. If you come over here, we can see show all activity. You can see that right now it is only showing the activities which is performed by me. And this was when the user was created, right? And if you click on my activity, there is nothing, and create, update, and delete, and there is no activity right now apart from the user which was created, right? So yeah, that is our activity. And then apart from that, we are having no other options apart from, just logging out, and then this notification settings in which we can come over here and view our notifications as well, right? And now, since we have provided all the, I would say, operations which we can perform with this to-dos collection, we can do that, right? So we can come over here, we can even create that to-do. So let's say this is a new to-do, right? Okay, rather going with this name, let's provide a meaningful name. Okay. So let's say run Java programming, or let's not go with Java. Let's say learn Ruby programming language. Okay, and Ruby programming language, and then we can enter the description. I will go with the same one. And if you want to provide an image, you can. Okay, so now here you can see that as soon as I click on this uploading the image, it is saying that you don't have any permission to access collection directors underscore folders. Okay, and this is the reason I cannot upload any image, right? And obviously if you want this user to upload that image, you can go and provide that permission as well, right? But I will go with the default one. Let's call it this one as in progress, and let's save it right over here. Okay, and now you can see that this our to do, which is our learn Ruby programming language, has been created, in which there is no image because we were unable to upload that image, right? And then we are having status and title right over here. Okay, and this is how you can come and interact with your data. Okay, and I can also delete the record. So let's say I want to delete this one. Let's create, I can even delete the records, I can even update it. So if I click on this record, I can come over here and I can say update it as well, and I can even update the records, right? So I can perform all the operations or all the permissions which was allowed in that access policies, right? And that's how simple it is to grant access policies to your end users. And the good part is that whatever operations you are performing, the accountability is being tracked. If you come into this activity log, you can see that whatever operations I am being performed, that is being tracked right over here. And even the super admin, or I would say the admin user, can even view these activity feed as well, right? So if you just log out from here, sign out, and let's sign in with our admin user, which was admin example.com, and let's come the password of admin and let's sign in. And now if you come to our to-dos and our content section, you can see that we are having all the, I would say, collections, because we are our admin user. And now in our to-dos, we can see what things have changed, right? So you can see that this learn Ruby programming language, this was created by John Doe user, right? And then if you click on activity log and show all activity, here you can see all the related activity right over here. Okay, so you can see that this to-dos was updated on this date time with John Doe, and this was edited with John Doe, and this was, I would say, created by John Doe, which was our second user, right? And here you can, track accountability, and even you can filter out things. So if I want to add a filter, let's say, let's create a filter on, if I can see any, so it's action by, and then we can target our first name, and we can say first name contains JHON, John. Okay, and now the filter is working, right? It was a little confusing for the first time, but yeah, we got it right. And this is how you can track what operations are being performed by John Doe, right? That's how simple it is. So yeah, moving on, I think we have understood and grasped the concept of, I would say, access policies. But moving on, if you come to our the settings section and this access policies, you can create multiple access policies depending on your use case, right? So you can see that in our access policy one, we have given permission of this to dos, and we have given all the permissions. But let's say I want to create another policy, right? So I can do that as well. So let's call it as access policy, let's call it as 2. I want to grant the app access. Let's save this thing. Now coming over here, what I can do is I can add a collection. So let's say I'm targeting this time as books, and I only want this access policy to just read the books, okay, and nothing else, right? So if you save this thing, and now if you come back to our users, and let's select John Doe, and you can just grant this access policy right over here, add existing, and just select that one which was our access policy 2, and save this right over here. Okay, so once you save all the settings, you can just log out, sign out, and you can just sign in with that users, which was john@test.com. The password was admin. Let's sign in. And now if you go back to our, let's close all this, and if you go back to our content section, you can see that right now we are also having the access to our books collection. But the good part is that you have only provided the read operation for this books collection, right? And you can see that here neither I can, add the record, neither I can delete the record, and neither I can update the record, right? I can only read the records. And that's how I would say easy it is to provide, I would say, access policies to your end users, right? And this is how simple it is, right? Now moving on, let's log out from here. Let's sign out, and let me go back to our admin@example.com, and let's call the password as admin. Let's sign in. And now once you come to this our admin user, if you go to settings into access policies, there is one access policy which I like to target about, which is this public access policy, right? And this is the policy which enables you to interact on your API level without authenticating. And whenever you are interacting with this public policy, please make sure and please be very conscious, because whatever you permissions you allow over here, any person without authentication can perform all those operations, right? So let's say, I'm giving you a scenario. So let's say if I go to add collection, and let's select our post collection, right? And I say that whatever posts there are, the public user can read all the posts, right? And if you save this thing, this policy will be activated as soon as you save this thing, right? Now you can use, I would say, you can access those post collection publicly via the API, right? And how this works is that you have to search for just Directus API reference, and this will be having all the documentations by which you can interact with Directus on the API level, right? So if you come to API Directus docs, and if you just scroll for, I guess, items, and let's select this one, list all the items in the collection. So this is the endpoint by which you can, get all the items in the collection, right? So this is / items and collection, right? So you know how you can use this items, I would say get all the items in the collection via API. And for this, you have to go into / items and then the collection name, right? And the base URL is obviously the URL of, I would say, your data studio at which your data studio instance is hosted, right? So in our case, let's go into our HTTP and / and then since we are at localhost 8055, this is our instance at which our data studio is running, right? And then / what we have to do is to say / items and then the collection name, right? And since we all know that we have provided I would say read permissions publicly to our post collection, so it should be items / post, right? And when you enter this thing, you can see that we are getting all the related data related to the post right over here. If you pretty print this thing and if you just zoom in, so you can see that we are having right now two posts, which was post one updated and the second one was title post two, right? And this is all the data which is coming in the JSON format, right? How cool it is, right? And with just simple clicks, you can come and allow all those collections to be publicly accessible via that public access policy, right? So now, if you come to this R Directus Data Studio, let me just zoom out for now. And if you come back to our default zoom, and if you go to our content and this post collection, you can see that we are having post one updated. And since we were using archiving option, so if I just go to archive and say show all items, you can see that we are having post one updated and post two, and these are the same records which are being displayed right over here. Okay, and that is how you can use that public access policy right over here. Okay, and be very careful with this access policy, because whatever you are allowing in this public policy will be accessible to any unauthenticated user, right? So yeah, I think that's it from this video for now. In the coming on section, we will look more into this, I would say, access policy, and especially we will look in some of the scenarios in which you can go further and you can even, customize this, I would say, permission model in a little deep, right? And we will see that what are those scenarios, and we will cover all these scenarios in that coming up video, right? So yeah, that's it from this video. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching.